Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of Radio Mentee. As I'm working through this time capsule of yet to be released content from the fall, it's really funny revisiting these episodes and looking back and then being here now, and the order with which I'm working through the cachet of content seems to be almost magically synchronous. Today's episode is with my dear friend Yoshino, who I just absolutely adore. Clearly, you can tell in this conversation that we have that there's like just such a special rapport between us. The first time that I met him was almost 3 years ago at the first iteration of WITMA, where I was a panelist on our mutual friend Noah Lampert's panel. We mentioned Noah a few times throughout the episode. Noah is the host of a podcast called Synchronicity, and he has been a beacon of a lot of synchronicity in my life, bringing in some of the greatest people that I've actually known and some of my best friends through Noah. So yeah, I met Yoshino 3 years ago at WITMA, and my memories with him were just laughing and him just having this really infectious smile and beautiful energy. And that's kind of carried forward through the conversations that we've had since. We recorded this interview back in October when I was in LA and visiting his studio called No Wave, which is a space in downtown LA. I was in LA visiting my former business partner, Anna Lungard, because also we were heading to a wedding. Our mutual friend, Brandy Sabella, was getting married in Joshua Tree. So it was a really interesting trip. That trip actually was what kind of like had solidified the seed of maybe do I want to move to LA? Is that where I want to go? But I say it's synchronous, the timing of this episode. So I decided to edit this today. Today was hashtag May Day, which is a worldwide meditation event that was happening that was produced with Anna and Brandy, who I was visiting back in LA and back in October in LA. And it was a weird day, man. Being fully transparent, as I hope to continue to be to all of my listeners, working in the quote unquote conscious space does not feel very conscious at times. The spiritual community is filled with a lot of challenge. I was actually thinking a lot of this Shams Tabrizi quote that if you're not familiar, so Shams Tabrizi was actually Rumi's spiritual teacher. Rumi is a great poet and philosopher from the 13th century. So this quote I was thinking about today that I'll share with you now. There are more fake guides and teachers in the world than there are stars. The real guide is the one who makes you see your inner beauty, not the one who wants to be admired and followed. That quote hit me really hard today because, this May Day event was super triggering for me because, my relationship with Anna when we ended WITMA didn't end on a good note. There was just a lot of internal issues and stress, and running large-scale productions of events has its own complications, and then compounded with surfing through a lot of ego in the wellness space, the stress levels were outrageous. So I found myself watching this meditation and feeling like really frustrated. It was triggering a lot of feelings about my frustrations in general with the consciousness space. And it was weird to be in that while simultaneously editing this episode, because this episode was like super medicinal to listen to today. We talk about the Tao and just finding balance in things, and we get so raw and vulnerable and really fucking authentic. And the laughter was, at least for me as an editor, trying to listen as though I'm not attached to it, felt really medicinal in so many ways. And I'm just grateful for that. It's this weird stark contrast from, this episode from October, right before WITMA imploded. And then now here we are today, May 21st, in quarantine times and, editing during May Day. It's weird. It's interesting. Timing is divine. It's funny because every time Yoshino and I talk, we always seem to talk about like dating and relationships, and I don't know, it's just refreshingly honest. I've never really met anybody like him, and I just think he's really wonderful. And beyond all that, he's an incredible creative. So I could sing his praises all day long, and I'm going to sound like some weirdo fangirl, but really I'm just like a friend. And I just adore him and think he's great. So let me tell you a little bit about Yoshino. Yoshino is a visual artist and podcast host who is based in Los Angeles, California. Having worked for years as a professional fashion photographer, his interests eventually shifted towards experimental fine art photography and mixed media collaborations. In 2015, he created the Artist Decoded podcast in an effort to dive deeper into the world of contemporary art. The podcast seeks to demystify the artistic process by providing an unabridged documentation of conversations with professional artists and creatives. Yoshino started Artist Decoded as a way to connect with fellow artistic peers and to share their stories with people around the world. Artist Decoded is ranked among the top 100 visual arts podcasts of all time. In 2017, Yoshino co-founded No Wave, which is a multimedia art collective and production company based in Los Angeles. Since its inception in 2017, No Wave is continually breaking barriers within the contemporary art world and is one of the only artist-operated galleries in Los Angeles. Among his creative, entrepreneurial endeavors, Yoshino is also a skilled MMA fighter who trains heavily in a range of martial arts and wields tremendous discipline to his craft. So yeah, he is a Renaissance man, if you will. Is that a corny thing to say? I don't know. He's kind of like he used the word polymath to describe his business partner, and I think that's applicable for him as well. But yeah, he's just a lovely being, and I love this conversation, and I think you'll love it too. It begins with laughter, it ends with laughter, and yeah, laughter's a really good thing. That's something that we could all use, especially when life feels super heavy. So this one's a long one. I'll have you know. We go for almost 2 hours, maybe over 2 hours, around that. So, yeah, I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. It's a good trip. So, kick back, relax, and flow with us. Welcome to Radio Amenti, embracing the eternal now, where minds and timelines merge, inspiring synchronicity, awakening potential, and making sense of change. Cool. So thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me and being here
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah. Oh yeah. Thanks for asking me to be on your podcast. So what's your podcast going to be called, or is it out yet?
So it just launched yesterday. I did an episode 0.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Which I did a solo cast, and I launched that like a few weeks ago just to kind of build interest and to let everybody know why. But it's called Radio Amenti. But the whole concept for it is where minds and timelines merge. So, yeah. I used to have a podcast called Liberation Frequency, and I did about 22 episodes, but I didn't think I had the format down right. It was more interview-based. It wasn't really having friends on, and for me doing Radio Menti now, I wanted to be more creatives and artists and people that are interested in like what lays beyond the veil, but are also bringing it down and creating tangible things with it. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was that last podcast about?
So it's called Liberation Frequency, and the tagline was from this like hardcore album. It's the progression through unlearning.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was
great.
Wait,
hardcore album, like a hardcore band?
Yeah, I forget the name of them. It was a hardcore band, and
I was just wondering because I that's kind of my roots growing up.
Oh wow!
Is listening to hardcore music.
Amazing. Yeah, my ex was really into hardcore, and he helped me produce the show, and he's like. Had introduced him like this is the greatest byline progression through unlearning because I feel like that's what we're all here doing too, unlearning all the crap that society has imprinted on us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was more interviews. So the coolest people I interviewed from it were I interviewed Rick Strassman from DMT, the Spirit Molecule.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
he's
Cool.
awesome. But I first connected with this publisher that was based in London called Watkins, which is London's oldest esoteric publisher. So they sent me a lot of their authors. So I was interviewing a lot of people from London, and they were wonderful, but I just didn't have the format down right. So
Yeah,
here
I
we
get
are.
it. Yeah. Yeah, I've thought about relaunching or starting over and doing a like a separate podcast or something, but there's just so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
So maybe eventually, but when, the team grows and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been cool because I've been wanting to talk to you because we only briefly got to connect at Whitma when we all went to the diner afterwards.
Yeah, that was cool though.
It was so fun.
I had a good time, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of laughs, and I love your work. So it's
thanks.
fun to riff on art and creativity and to connect again.
Yeah,
so.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you do. And
and before we started recording, we were talking about the importance of community building. So it's funny to be here because I think the seeds for Whitma were really planted when you guys all did the event here, which was 3 years ago?
Yeah, that was in March of 2017.
Wow.
Yeah, so 2.5 years ago. Yeah.
And did you meet Noah through MindPod, or how did that all connection? How did it all come to be for you?
Well, I mean, meeting Noah. Let's see. I met Noah Lampert through MindPod Network, but from Michael Donovan. So Michael Donovan connected me to Noah when I first started the podcast because I had Michael on I think on episode 3, and then I don't know, he just connected us, and then Noah asked me if I wanted my podcast to be on MindPod Network, and I agreed, and then and that was kind of the genesis of that relationship. And Noah's just a really great, honest, and kind person. So
He's funny. It's amazing what a connector he is too, because for the longest time, I don't know if you know on Facebook how they have that other folder where sometimes messages will get lost in there. So I have a ton of messages in this other folder that I don't check all the time. So years ago, Noah had messaged me, and it just stayed there for a really long time. And finally one day I checked it, and I'm like, I don't know how I didn't get this. And Noah has literally just brought so many amazing people into my life through his curation and just eye of being like, okay, this is who needs to meet each other. So it's been really cool. Yeah, no,
he's definitely a great connector. I think it's funny also, just because I go on our No Waves, through the Facebook messages, and for some reason, the way that it's set up, it doesn't directly go. Well, I don't know. I don't really check Facebook in general, anyways, too often. So it could be that. But there's some sometimes when there's from a year or 2 or 3 ago, where there's a message just sitting there, and then I kind of feel bad because I didn't respond to the person. But anyways, Noah is he's a great person. I'm definitely glad to have him in my life. Yeah.
He's wonderful.
Yeah. Actually, something interesting about Noah is that during that time period when I met him, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, that idea, because, I've done psychedelics in the past, but I never really thought of it. Maybe it's just also maturing and being more conscious of things, but I never really thought about psychedelics in terms of my opening me up to my spiritual growth. It was more something in my 20s that I did more recreationally, I guess, and sporadically. It'd be I might have done it 3 or 4 times throughout my 20s. And then when I met Noah around that time, and also meeting Michael, Third Eye Drops, and Corey and Corey Allen, and I guess that time period was a seed that was getting planted about the connectivity of spirituality with the subconscious. And recently, I've been really exploring that more than I ever have, being conscious about the intake of psychedelics and trying to activate your subconscious. But
do you find a specific medicine or modality that you like working with best when it comes to exploring those realms?
Yeah, probably psilocybin mushrooms. Definitely psilocybin mushrooms, because I don't really, or I've done acid once, or LSD, but the mushrooms definitely, whether it's connectivity through like mycelial networks, or how it's actually something that comes from the earth and you intake it. I don't know exactly scientifically how to break that down, but it is a way for me to activate. It's kind of like the way that I look at psychedelics or psilocybin mushrooms is it's kind of a portal that transports you directly back to your childlike self, where there was less judgment, where there's less, you're not as conscious of things that are societal roles. And I've been thinking about that recently, about how that is a portal that directly transports you there into that frame of mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that psilocybin is unique to that, because I love that childlike sense of wonder. But then when you get into those giggle fits where you're just like, oh, everything's funny, and there's like absurdity in being alive. And there's something so profound in that, of just being able to laugh at how insane it is that we're like a human being on this earth walking through this insane reality that we've all created. I feel like mushrooms are very specific in their teachings of that. So
definitely. I mean, I did mushrooms maybe about 3 or 4 months ago with one of my best friends from college, and it was just great to reconnect with him like that. And but yeah, it's so like sensitive too, because basically I was just thinking about this, like basically anything is interesting. Your hand is interesting. The you can look at a rug and it's interesting. But yeah, no, I think grass is interesting. Everything, you're so sensitive. Your senses are activated, and yeah, I don't know. It's interesting just to think about that. Think about every day we're walking around, and you miss so many different things. I'm not exactly sure what this like the proven percentage is, but I believe it's somewhere around like 5% of things that you see on a daily basis you actually pay attention to, but the 95% you don't. And I feel like psychedelics immediately transports you to that close to 100%. You just see everything and see the beauty in everything.
Totally. And it's like, I forget who had the quote, but they talk about how when you expand your consciousness, it's like a rubber band. So once it's stretched, it can never return to its original form. So the more you stretch, the more you take in, the more you see from this greater lens of perception, the more you just are in awe. Like I was having a conversation, not last night, but the night before. Anna had me do a workshop at Soho House in Malibu, and I was talking to everybody, and we're like, it's crazy when you think like the idea that it's the table, right? It's the table, it's solid, but really what it is just a bunch of vibrating molecules together, and it's mostly emptiness on a molecular level. And we don't think about that. We don't think of things from a deeper perspective. We're in this society that takes everything at face value, and what is it right in front of me? But like mushrooms help you see beyond the veil and realize how like, oh my God, this is insane.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wild how much we don't take in too. There was a show on Netflix called Brain Games where they had this exercise where somebody would walk up to a counter and it would be me talking to you and then be like, oh, hold on, I dropped my wallet. And then somebody else would come back up. And it was incredible to me. Nobody noticed that it was a completely different person that they were talking to. Like, I think out of like 10
That's
people,
awesome.
maybe one realized that,
Yeah.
but that just shows how distracted and not paying attention most people are.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see myself in a position similar to that, just going to get coffee, and you're more concerned with what you're ordering at that time than really trying to connect with the person in front of you, or just being completely unaware. Yeah, so I could imagine how that would happen to people.
Yeah. Have you found too, because it fascinates me with creatives exploring these realms, like how's your art shifted since you've been going deeper into this exploration?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think like in general, I've been much more conscious in terms of, because before, I got into photography and it was kind of from, and this could also be just me being immature or being young, where I looked at things more for aesthetic value, and I was more interested in the aesthetics of things and not really understanding the depth. So, I think, the more that I explore the medium and different mediums, then I understand that, yeah, I understand and or try to fully embrace the depth of things. But I've also been painting recently and drawing, and it's just kind of a new exploration. So I wouldn't consider myself like a painter by any means. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because it's hard for me to say because I feel like I channel that artistic mindset into other things. I feel like right now my mindset is very much like an entrepreneurial mindset, and I feel just like my personal flow and happiness, I have to be 50% entrepreneur business and 50% of the art, an artist. And I think that just what works for me and keeps me like equally balanced. But yeah, so it's kind of hard for me to say because I have such a love and appreciation for art, but right now my focus is so much on growing No Wave and the various things around No Wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about No Wave? It's like inception and intention and what the future looks like with this mindset.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Well, let's see. It all started when I was a child. I was walloping through the field, and I thought to myself, field, in your unique beauty. I don't know.
I like that story.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Yeah. And then I saw it, No Wave. No, I'm just kidding. No, so basically like 2015 I started the podcast, and during that time I was kind of going through this artistic rut where I was dedicating a lot of my time. Like my initial intention wasn't, to get into photography. Let me back up a little bit. My initial approach to getting into photography. So I'm taking it back.
Yeah.
Okay. So my initial thing into getting photography, I was very naive, and I was thinking that, I could do a business with this and whatnot. So it was kind of to like create a business. And then through that process, I started dissecting it and finding my artistic sensibilities and realizing that ever since I was a kid, I've been watching these films, and like from Stanley Kubrick to various other directors, and I've been accumulating knowledge on just art. The genesis of that, the beginning of that was in film. But so I started to like develop my artistic sensibilities as I was doing photography, and I realized I was 28, this was 5 years ago, that I didn't want to just shoot for clients anymore. That's not the way that I really wanted. Like I felt like I had more to say with photography. But yeah, so let's see. So then during that time in 2015, I started the podcast. I found myself in an artistic rut, and then on episode 7, I interviewed my now business partner. His name's Justin Dosher Hopkins. He's been a professional illustrator since the age of 14. Has worked as a professional musician, like scoring films. He's like a polymath kind of a guy. He's a painter as well and a director now. But so we started No Wave because we got introduced to some people that knew the building owners of this building, and we got presented this opportunity to create this space. And then Justin came up with the idea of calling it No Wave, which is partially dissected from the No Wave film movement, and no being associated with both of our Japanese heritage, from No dance. So it's a combination of, because No Wave was also the antithesis of the New Wave movement. And so, our thing is about bringing people together in community, artistic community, and doing things together, doing projects together, and things of that nature. And we did a ton of gallery shows, and we're still doing them, and events. And now we've been doing this thing called No Wave Academy, which is the artists that we represent and the artists that we work with. We have them do online workshops. and where anyone can learn, from these artists that you generally wouldn't be able to have access to. So, yeah, that's kind of, where it's going.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a master class, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much like a master class. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. Kind of backtracking a little bit, like
Sure.
thinking about balance and thinking about the fact that you say, like, in order to feel good, it's 50% entrepreneurial, 50% creative.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you cross pollinate the two, do you find sometimes there can be a little bit of a struggle in that? Because as a creative as well, like sometimes I feel like my art and my writing gets, what's the right word? Like there's just this static around it when the business side starts to get stressful. So it's like separating the two, but having the two be completely like, I don't know. How is that for you? I don't know if you have a struggle or you found a way to balance it out.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. The balance between the two, artistically and creatively and business. I mean, I think like to be a modern day creative, if you don't come from financial backing, like if you don't come from money, you have to constantly juggle the two. So if you accept that, if you accept the fact that you have to juggle the two, and yes, I mean, there's certain things that, come into play, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, your certain basic things need to be met for your survival. But sometimes I think about it as kind of a puzzle, kind of thinking about things as like a game and how you can, figure out things, to basically survive. So I try to separate myself, but yeah, I mean, I can't lie either. I can't lie to myself. There's definitely times where I get a bit of anxiety from having to balance the two.
Yeah.
But I try to stay as centered as I can. I definitely take time for myself to like do things that make me feel good, like working out and staying consistent with that, and then going to the beach. And I try to go once a week to the beach after training, because I train over on the west side, and boxing, and just go into the ocean. Just like even just letting the water hit your feet and running around a little bit, just something to, I don't know, there's something about the ocean, that the vastness of, being at the Pacific Ocean and understanding that you're so small compared to this large body of water that covers a majority of the planet. There's something that is inherently connected to humanity and also outside of humanity.
Yeah, I really relate to that. I think part of why I never moved to New York is because I need to be by the water. So, I mean, I live in Asbury Park, New Jersey, which is a little weird beach town. And being in the ocean is just so restorative. I don't want to say grounding. I feel like it's able to like allow you to walk through both realms with ease. But there's so many metaphors, just being a creative, being in the water and thinking of like flow consciousness and just how infinite and big life is. When you think of like that, is it Alan Watts or is it Rumi? I feel like it gets equally accredited to both, where it's like you're not the entire ocean, you're a drop in the ocean, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But it's so necessary. I actually was talking to Anna about how the way that we work so differently. She's like an amazing like workhorse, like just will go all day until like 10 o'clock at night and just never lose focus. But for me, I look at it like, as a creative, sometimes there can be like this mana, like in a video game, where you only have X amount, and then throughout the day it starts to deplete. So finding ways to make sure it doesn't deplete is so important.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all
Do
balanced.
you play a lot of video games?
As a kid, I did.
Oh,
yeah.
you did?
I loved
okay.
Nintendo as a kid.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was so good and so trippy. And I always say that like whoever created Mario was definitely like psychedelic, because you think about Mario is like a regular plumber that takes mushrooms to gain strength, and he's fighting an evil reptilian overlord and collecting gold coins. Like,
it's so good.
It's not a metaphor for life. I don't know what is.
Yeah, yeah.
And he keeps looking for the princess in a castle, and she's always evading him. So it's kind of like a funny meta story.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think it speaks of, probably speaks a lot about just the consciousness of that time, and I mean, you could even dissect it into like traditional forms of like masculinity and femininity roles, you know,
Yeah.
in terms of like the evading of like the princess. And then, you know, there's this archetypal sort of, you know, hero character. But I was going to say also, you know, in terms of, you know, I've dissected this a lot in terms of partnership. Should I just talk over it?
Yeah, it's fine.
That's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I've dissected this a lot in terms of partnerships, and I think that a good partnership, you are equally balanced, and it's not as cut and dry and simple as that. But I think you can. So me and my business partner Justin, he thinks of things like very differently than I do, but at the same time, it's complementary and very similar. You know, just he comes with it from his perspective and his artistic and creative sensibilities, and I come from it with my own artistic sensibilities, but also just my understanding of business and things of that nature. But I think like to have a symbiotic partnership, it's about that, but it's also about just really allowing the other person to be in your stream of consciousness as well, and having open conversations, and not just any partnership in general. I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Yeah.
It's a good exercise in being able to trust that you can do that. But it's hard to trust that it's okay to be honest with what you need or what you're feeling. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that could go from just our humanistic inherent need for connectivity and being connected with people and not wanting to be judged or not wanting to be alienated from the tribe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's how I think relationships and partnerships grow, is by allowing the other person to speak freely, not judging them, and not reacting in a negative way, or trying not to, at least, and trying to just be open with communication and also just work together, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing too when you realize that you can resolve conflict without getting into an argument.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I recently read this book, Freedom from Anger,
Mm.
and yeah, it helped me dissect a lot of things that I wouldn't necessarily consider me being angry. And you know, I'm not perfect, obviously, but no one
None
is.
of us is.
Yeah,
No
one's
one is.
perfect. Yeah. I mean, I even think the idea of perfection is a little.
It's a little boring.
Yeah, it's kind of it's unattainable.
Yeah.
I think in certain ways, but yeah, it just allowed me to understand that these things I didn't consider anger before are actually frustration and anger that build up and that I don't address over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they talk about how anger is actually a secondary emotion?
I don't think so, actually.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
learned
What do you
that.
mean?
So when we get angry,
Mhm.
it's usually after being triggered by something. You know, it's not like all of a sudden anger is the thing. It's like somebody said something that hit a wound. Where did that wound come from? So anger in turn is actually from a space of insecurity or sadness or lack or feeling unheard. It's not just like anger as one umbrella thing. It's a secondary emotion. It's the reaction to the trigger, and the trigger is the wound. And that helped me recontextualize even just, I think, being honest. You know, this is another part of wanting to do this podcast is I think social media and being in fields, whether it's in the arts, creativity, or in the conscious, quote unquote, conscious media space, people will look at an Instagram feed or an idea or a perception somebody has of you online and just assume. But like really we're human beings beyond this illusion. So practicing honesty in these talks is so important to me. So
Yeah.
with that being said, like I had a phase of like really feeling angry, and it was like 2016 to 2018.
Yeah.
It was something that I never was an angry person. I've always been just like love and like happy and laughy, but I just got really hurt. And that's when anger came through. And I'm like, God, why am I reacting this way? Where is this coming from?
Yeah.
But then when you look at it, looking directly at it and through it and being like, oh, this actually comes from something much deeper. It's so helpful. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, yeah, understanding that, that it's a reaction. I mean, I guess yeah, I'm still trying to dissect some of that stuff because, yeah, I mean, it's true that it does come from a much deeper place, and then it's like, how do you be empathetic and nurture that for other people that you love? You know, because that's something that I don't know. I think sometimes, I mean, this is, bringing up the Four Agreements and Don Miguel Ruiz, but, sometimes we take those fits of anger, like if someone, like, let's say you got mad at me, but really it's you, and I'm not saying this is a case, I'm just making a fictitious scenario, but, maybe you get angry at me and it's because something that I did, and I internalize that and I'm like, well, why are you angry at me? But actually it's you being angry at yourself.
Yes.
And that's why, and you're just, because we are close, that you feel comfortable enough to basically share that with me. I mean, it's a little complicated, right?
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we just take it for face value, and I'm guilty of this. I take things sometimes for face value, and I don't take a step back and truly dissect where that's coming from, and then you react and get frustrated, or I react and get frustrated in that situation. So I think that's a good thing to understand, that it is a secondary thing. It's a reaction from maybe some things that you're dealing with internally.
Yeah.
And those needs aren't getting met, so you're angry with me.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
And learning, like, I read something where it's like, I think it was a meme where they just said, instead of saying, why is this happening to me, saying, what is this happening to me? Like learning how to reframe the questions of the things that we're met with and why. Mindfulness, I mean, it's like they'd call it like it's a practice because there's no end to it. And there's so many gradients to mindfulness, however you exercise it in your day to day. But yeah, questions are so important to be like, oh, what is this happening to me? Not like, God, I'm a victim, instead of like, okay, well, I'm a sovereign being and how can I handle this better? So continued learning process.
Yeah. Learning. And also just learning is so important. And also just being kind to yourself and other people that you care for, constantly reminding yourself to be kind and not beat yourself up or beat other people up. I think it's very important. Yeah.
Well, it's empathy, right?
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Have you been reading anything good lately beyond the book you had just mentioned? What is it about anger, the book?
Oh, Freedom from Anger.
Freedom from Anger. Has anything else good come into the field?
Well, recently I've been reading Secret Tactics, and it's kind of similar to The Art of War, but it's kind of similar to The Art of War and the Book of Five Rings. It's like a kind of like a martial arts strategy book, but there's also sort of Taoist sort of philosophy in that book. I'm reading it right now because this tattoo artist, and he's a really like fantastic painter. He's a painter artist that's transitioning to being a tattoo artist. I'm going to get a a tattoo from in Florida. His name's Akira Beard.
Cool.
And he's actually turned me on to the book, and I've just been reading it recently. But it's just really like understanding flow and movement, and and understanding your opponent. I mean, in a fighting martial arts sense, but then also understanding distance, and you can even metaphorically put that into like distance from people, or from like flow with your life, and flow with the people around you. And there's so many abstract metaphors that could be taken from martial arts in general, I think, that I try to think about. But yeah, that's a book that I've been reading. Let's see, what other book has been really good that I've read? Well, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield is really good. I try to read that I think once a year or something.
Oh, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
Let's check it out.
Yeah, it's the guy who wrote Legend of Bagger Vance.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
I never read or saw the movie, but I've heard of it. So. Yeah.
It's basically just, that book is about these artistic trials and tribulations that come about, and how to navigate the business side of art and also the creative side of art, and how like art meets commerce, and how to navigate that.
That's awesome. I really like that you mentioned Taoist philosophy too. So the flow states and looking at things from the space of both, you know, kind of like, I feel like that like ripples through our entire conversation, like balance and being able to kind of see things from both perspectives and dance with it and to move with it. I remember, like 5 years ago, I received the Tao, and I never even knew what it was. I actually thought I was going to a dowsing ceremony, like to look for water with rods.
Yeah. Isn't it? Yeah. Isn't it funny how certain things enter your stream of consciousness and hopefully at the moment where you're actually prepared to read or listen to it, and it totally can change your life if you allow it to.
Yeah. It's unbelievable because, again, like you said, like if it came into my life earlier, I wouldn't have really got it, and then just through a random synchronicity that happened. But is that like a philosophy you resonate with? Like, if you could look at, like, I don't know, I feel like there's like many songs to the music of what it means to be human, and I feel like Taoism is a really useful philosophy. But have you found any other kind of realms of thought that feel of that same space? Or
I mean, Taoist philosophy is, I feel like even with, so I grew up being Christian a majority of my life until I was maybe about 18 or 19. And, you know, I went to Christian school a majority of my life. And even with Christianity, I think that there are certain things that you can take from it if you take away the idea of church, you know, and you take away that sort of idea. Like and if you just think of it as metaphors, and you can dissect some pretty profound realizations within that. But I think it's just because, you know, Christianity is so, I don't want to speak bad about Christianity necessarily, because I believe that, you know, anyone should believe in whatever they believe, you know, as long as it, you know, serves you and serves other people in a positive way. But, I don't know. I think I try to think of things. I try to think of things like as abstract as possible, but also so simple too. I try to think of it simple and abstract, but that's another thing about the Tao. It's, you know, keep to the simple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we're constantly toggling between, I try to toggle between abstract and simple thoughts as much as I can. Yeah. I don't know if that answered anything.
No, but I think that's smart. And I think it's interesting that you grew up Christian. Like, I grew up without religion. I didn't have a relationship to Jesus until I started experimenting with psychedelics, and I was like, wow, he was just a radical thinker.
Yeah. Jesus is psychedelics.
He's totally, There's that whole other rabbit hole.
He is God. God is in everything.
Yeah. But him flipping over the tables in the temple, like, stop counting money in here. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But it was funny because when I received the Tao, they give you these treasures at the end of it. Mm-hmm. And one is like a mantra that you can't reveal. But one of the other ones that I thought was super interesting was they talk about Christianity as a metaphor and how Christ was crucified on Skull Mountain in between two thieves. So don't let your eyes deceive you of the truth. And I've never been able to stop thinking about that ever since then. So when you revisit these texts with this alchemical lens, with that radically expanded consciousness, you're like, what? This is crazy.
Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that trickles through a lot of major wisdom traditions. Like in Buddhist philosophy, they talk about how there's an inner, outer, and secret meaning with a lot of the texts. So again, we're in this society where we're not taught to look beyond. And it trickles through religion, which is this. Philosophy is beautiful. Religion is when you put a container on something that can't be contained and use it as a system of control. And that's my subjective idea of it. Not to knock religion, but I think everything's so infinite. It's hard to put it in a label to be like, this is it. No, it's like everything.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I think some people prefer to be in a box that they create. And I think it's our job as, you know, creative thinkers and as people are interested in learning to be able to be in the box and step out of the box and then find a new box and then create another box and construct a different box and break that box. And it's just, it's a very complex thing.
420
That's,
East Third Street.
that's over there. Yeah. The lobby is over there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Oh, how about that?
Definitely have to keep the visitor in there.
Yeah. Oh my God, because he asked for 420 Easter Street.
Yeah.
And they're talking about 420
Yeah.
Easter.
Yeah. 420 Easter Street. We got,
Christ has resurrected
Yeah,
from the sacred cannabis.
That's awesome. That
Thank
that
you,
was
sir.
amazing. Yeah.
Well, everything connects.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. That was
so
crazy.
good.
Yeah.
So what do you have planned for your weekend in Yosemite? Are you going to be just
Nothing.
Nothing.
I don't know. I plan a lot of things, and when it comes to going somewhere, I try not to plan anything, because then it just makes things kind of set in stone, and I don't know. I prefer to just experience if I can, you know.
Yeah. That's a real vacation. And very similar to you. I prefer to flow.
Yeah.
Like, I love flow as a consciousness in all areas of my life, to just be able to roll with it. Because I feel like anytime a plan happens, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Good to have some structure, but a
Definitely.
vacation where it's like, this is your schedule, that's the worst.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. I have a question for you. So where did you, do you remember the beginning of when you found the importance of flow?
Yeah. So when I started Evolve and Ascend, I was really lucky to magnetize some really incredible collaborators. And one of those collaborators is my friend Justin Fairman. And he has a magazine called Conscious Lifestyle Magazine. And when I first started Evolve and Ascend, I lost everything I had. I had all my Bitcoin in this trading platform that got hacked. I was broke as shit. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And he always was such an amazing support. So beyond having Conscious Lifestyle Magazine, he's a very successful business person, and he is the founder of something called the Flow Consciousness Institute. And he gifted me the Flow Consciousness course and taught me what it meant and how to kind of hack your mind. And that I'd never heard of before, but because of that gift, it opened up, oh wow, they talk about this in Taoism. They talk about this is flow states is really when you're just really living your truth and things flow with effortless ease. But that was 2015 is when he had gifted me the course, but he's been in my life since 2013. But it completely changed everything for me. Things started to really shift when I started looking at things that way, the path of least resistance. And yeah, it's wild, because I think sometimes we're so conditioned to we got to fight for what we want. We have to fight for these things. We have to struggle. And I think that the struggle is valuable. I think that failure is very useful. But I think sometimes when you get into these flow states and you're really doing what's in your heart of hearts, it can be easy. It can shift. And it was a weird, crazy thing to be wow, it can be easy. I give myself permission for this to be easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think that's what's as a as a metaphor to that, in terms of the fighting sense. So with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's similar to wrestling in ways, but there's more options for different attacks and different ways of moving. It's not as restricted. And to really understand the situation when you're, I guess, sparring with someone or fighting with someone, in a physical sense, the more advanced that you become, the more that you understand of releasing tension and then allowing the other person to kind of flow into different positions as you flow into that position. And it's really interesting. It is kind of in, what's it called? A representation of the flow state in the physical form, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
To be able to dance with.
Yeah, it's like dancing too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting though. I mean, have you had moments in your life where it's just been like complete flow consciousness? Because like those are the trippiest things for me, when it's just like one synchronicity after the next synchronicity, just opening. Like, how has that been in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that comes from just realizing that you are not in control, and just understanding that the more that you try to control something, people, you can try to control a situation, it actually works against you. So just say, relinquish control. I'm not in control of this particular situation, and then allow it. Like, even if you relied on someone to do something and they didn't do it, you kind of have to take a step back. And I mean, obviously depending on what situation is, but you have to take a step back and say, okay, well, that's okay. That didn't happen quite like I thought it was going to, but maybe I shouldn't have had the expectation. And yeah, so I try to just be like even keel for the most part, and I think that allows for flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Staying even, staying balanced. Because if you get too excited, then you're so attached to a result. Then when it doesn't happen, then it leads you to the other polarity where you're disappointed.
Yeah.
Being able to just be and do and be like water, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Be like water. Be malleable like clay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee, that quote, "Be like water," is one of the best.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah.
He was, it's interesting how much he resonated with people and how big of an impact he made on culture, but also just Asian culture in general.
Yeah.
Something that I wasn't really privy to as a kid because, I don't know, I guess, some people, I think just sometimes, like, people get really into like creating political statements and leading their life for political statements or spiritual sort of things, or I guess it's just really about like what you love and want to believe in, or
Totally.
something.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I saying? Who am I? What am I? Anyways.
Yeah. But he seemed like he was somebody that just, I think another part of flow is when you're doing things, when you know that this is what you're meant to be doing, and there's like not really like another option. It's just like, okay, I've heeded the call for this journey ahead of me. And I remember I loved Dragon, the Bruce Lee story growing up, the movie.
Yeah.
And I didn't even really know anything about Bruce Lee. I was just like, I love this movie. And then watching it as an adult and being like, wow, he was so young when he died.
Yeah.
He accomplished so much in his life against all odds. And it's just incredible to witness that somebody can do something like that makes such an impact beyond anything he probably ever imagined.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And, I'd like to say that we all have it in us to not go with the inertia of society, to realize that. I don't know if not everyone is going to make a tremendous impact like Bruce Lee, but at least within your own community, you can make an impact on other people,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he was definitely very special, but I think everyone has their own special, unique qualities to them.
Totally.
And it's for you to realize that or not.
Yeah. But I think that's making community as a really crucial word and understanding. Is that I remember watching this TED Talks. It was about this guy at a festival and nobody was dancing, and the guy doing the TED Talk was talking about the guy who first started dancing, and he looked crazy, and everybody's like, what the fuck, this crazy guy dancing? And then little by little people join him, and there comes a moment where you don't realize who first started. Everybody's just dancing.
Yeah.
So I think people like a Bruce Lee, who's created such an impact on a large scale, can give somebody permission, if they find the story, to be like, wow, I can follow my dream. I can do something. I can be courageous. Or somebody maybe that's feeling alone comes to a community event and realizes there are people like me in the world who want things. It gives you permission to have courage to do what you feel called to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it's finding that community. So, like, thinking about like no wave community that you're building, like who would you say are like the typical people you find drawn to the space or to your events, or who would be the person like listening now to be like, oh my God, this is the thing that I need to participate in?
Probably people similar to me. I guess. I guess, you put something out there and you hope that resonates with some people.
Yeah.
You hope that energy that you put out there resonates. I would say artistically minded sort of people, creatively conscious sort of people. Yeah, but I don't know. I think just try to allow yourself to be as authentic as possible. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
that's awesome. Yeah, that's the best. That's why even so Whitma, where we met, Noah had asked me to be a panelist, and it was such a cool experience to see what it means to just like show up and be around community of people maybe that had been listening to you or reading you, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I feel like having spaces where you can just show up as you are and be accepted for that is so important. And I mean, to have a space like with what you're creating, it's like you don't have to be anything other than who you are, and to be authentic in that, and you can show up and be accepted and loved, and maybe like meet somebody new that you never knew you needed.
No. And some of the most profound experiences happen when I least expected it. And the people that have made the biggest impact in my life didn't even know they existed until that moment when I met them at this random happenstance sort of moment. Yeah. So, I think like I think everyone should try to be open to that. That things will just happen as they should. Doesn't mean you should be lazy.
Yeah.
But try not to get frustrated at if things don't happen exactly how you think they are, because the expectation is actually what is limiting and kills the innovation of what could potentially happen.
For sure.
Yeah,
and to trust that there are good people out in the world, and that if you want to find your people, they do exist.
Yeah.
And looking, I have this thing with social media where lately I've just been redeveloping my relationship to it, and looking at it as a tool, and really ultimately what it's meant to be is a tool for connectedness. But in certain instances, it can be weaponized and create this space where you're constantly scrolling and not present and not feeling good. But if you look at it as a tool, I mean, that's how like Noah came into our lives, and then here we are having this conversation, and like just putting it out there what you need, and knowing that it may come to you when you least expect it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, social media can definitely be a tool. It's also an interesting distraction. Or it could be if you allow it to. But who knows? I'm curious how like the social media conversation is going to be in 5 years.
I really wonder that.
If no one's this is just totally irrelevant in 5 years, and people are like, oh, they were talking about social media. And
the old geezers.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder that. I actually, before our podcast, I met with my friend Marcella Kroll. She's an amazing artist. She has an oracle deck, and we were talking about social media, and like just in August, I took a month of not posting just to really listen and to be like, okay, what do I really want to share, and what do I see that people are sharing? And she had said like, she kind of has this weird relationship with it where it feels like a lot of people screaming a lot of times. But I feel like there's this thing happening where people are realizing that like it's a great tool, but like there's nothing like human connection. And we're so in need of it, so desperately in need of human connection. So I think the new social media will be maybe offline connection, which is like the original social gatherings.
It's kind of like everything is. I forget who said this. Actually, you know what? I heard this from the filmmaker Cary Fukunaga, but I don't know if this is necessarily his idea or words, but something to the effect of, as soon as you exit the womb, you're trying to find ways to get back.
Wow. Oh my God.
I think I was just when I heard that, this is recently, maybe a couple of days ago, I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, yeah, it's totally true. Yeah, and then I thought about that movie, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Oh my God,
and
yeah,
how
I
that's
love
such a
that.
metaphor of, just life. You start as a child, you end as a child, but in a different form.
Oh, I love that movie. That movie was so beautifully done.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah.
But it's funny the womb quote. Have you experimented with bufo yet?
No,
Oh
I
my
haven't.
gosh.
Is that the frog?
Toad.
The toad?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So combo is the frog. I've done that recently as well.
Interesting. Okay.
It's not psychedelic. It's purgative. So you receive combo, which are these like dots they burn in your skin, and then it basically like makes you heat up. In some instances, you'll like get like really swollen and look like a frog. So it's like your face will just like puff up, but it's really good for draining your lymphatic system. But there's no psychedelic effects. It's just like,
I see. Okay.
But bufo is 5-MeO-DMT, which is different than regular DMT. So
I didn't know that it was called bufo.
yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
Bufo alvarius, which is a Sonoran desert toad. So 5-MeO-DMT, that extra little molecule makes it different than regular DMT, because regular DMT is like when you have these experiences and you step into the Alex Gray painting. 5-MeO-DMT takes you to the void. And like trying to explain that, everybody that tried to explain what the void was to me before doing it, I'm like, emptiness? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And it takes you to emptiness, and it's what I imagine it probably was like in the womb, or what it's like, when you die. But the weirdest thing happened, because like you say that quote, but then when I like had that experience, ever since then I've been like so feeling this call to be grounded. So taking the elevator up to the highest level of like instant samadhi, now all I want to do is be in my body and be human.
That is so wild.
Yeah.
I want to have that experience. I did DMT once, but I actually did it with Michael Donovan and Sean Dunn.
Oh, I love Sean. I was with them last night. Sean and Cass are here.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Oh.
They're here for Desert Days. They leave today.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I did it over at Sean's place, actually, and in New York. But yeah, I didn't get the experience I thought I was going to. I don't know why.
Was it Changa?
It was like, I think maybe it was because I expected something. I don't know, but I was just kind of, my consciousness was towards the back of my head, and I saw things as if my eyes were in the back of my brainstem. I don't know, but I thought that I would be like looking down at my body or something like that.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
But I'm open to those experiences.
Well, definitely teaches you surrender.
Yeah.
So there's no controlling those situations. So like DMT, it's a little more, you can navigate both worlds.
I see.
But 5-MeO, you're gone.
I want to be gone.
Yeah, you're completely gone.
I want to be gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that could be a thing, when I remember like you experience timelessness and what that really is, because the other thing with DMT is like, I don't know if you had this experience when you did it. There's like this weird noise that sometimes happens when you're switching
experience
dimensions.
that.
No?
No.
Oh, well, you might if you try it again, because it's a common sound. I think even Terrence McKenna talks about it. But Bufo, it's silence, it's emptiness, and all that is corporeal is gone, and it is just where I imagine like the Tibetan Buddhists get to, that space.
Yeah.
I kept calling it nothing and everything all at once, and then I actually talked to my friend who's a Vajrayana practitioner. He's like, well, there's no such thing as nothing. It's empty. So I've been trying to reframe it that way.
Interesting.
But it was funny because I did it and it was gone for like 10 minutes, but I came back and I felt so bad. I was like, oh my God, did you have to hold space for me for hours? Was I gone a really long time? Like, I'm sorry if I held everybody up.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you're gone for 10 minutes. Like, what the fuck?
So crazy.
But I recommend it,
crazy.
like, as a one, it's
Love
something
it.
that, like, to have that experience, to check it off the list.
Mm-hmm.
I took a friend of mine to do it a few weeks ago, like my childhood best friend, who he just actually moved back to LA after having that experience. And sitting with him was so profound. But I think it's something that I don't know how something that takes you up to such a high level of reality in the Matryoshka universe of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually very grounding, or at least has been in my experience, and it seemed to have been for
Yeah.
him as
How
well.
many times have you done it?
Once. And then
Mm.
when I took my friend, I just did a little holding space, little bit, so that
Yeah.
the frequency of the room could be the same.
I see.
I may do it again at some point in my life, but I don't feel like I need to more than I feel like having that one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember coming into consciousness and looking at my skin and seeing my freckles and seeing my body and being like,
Yeah.
oh my God, this is like a precious casing that I'm only going to get for maybe 60 to 80 years if I'm lucky.
Mm.
And then I'm gone back to this thing that we all come from and return to. So I want to enjoy being Jen.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
yeah.
Have you done ayahuasca?
Yeah. I've been working with ayahuasca since 2013. At this point,
Wow.
I've done it like almost 40 times.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's your I guess general experience with ayahuasca? I've actually never done ayahuasca.
Oh, wow. Okay. So ayahuasca is like rolling the dice. So every time you do it, it's radically different. And there are 4 major experiences you can have with it. So one, you can feel nothing at all. So there are instances where I've sat in ceremony where I felt nothing. And I've been like, is this not working? And like, no matter how many cups I take, I don't feel anything. And they call that the nada. So it's like, whatever. But in the Colombian tradition, they say if you have this experience, it actually means that you're having work done on such a molecular level that you can't be present for it. Also would like send you into panic. That's how they explain it. And then there's the pinta, which is the visionary state where you're just in the fractal field of geometry and space aliens and machine elves. Then there's the consulta, where you have a consultation with like a spirit guide or a deceased relative, or you see like a life review. That actually like happened recently in August, which was like such a trip where you just see. Have you seen Interstellar? Okay, so this is the metaphor I use for it all the time. When he's in the Tesseract and you see all of these iterations of that bookcase room, you have that where you see your life and all these different iterations of like, here I was at 5, here I was at 6. This is this core wound. This is why I'm angry. This is why this upsets me.
Wow.
So you go through time and see all of it. So that's like the consulta. And then there's psychic surgery. So it's such a trip. You'll literally feel like something's operating on you and removing energy from your body.
Crazy.
So those are the 4 main ones, and every time it's radically different. So in August, I did 3 ceremonies at Rhythmia, and each one was different.
3 consecutive ceremonies.
Yeah, so Monday,
3
Tuesday,
days.
Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, they do 4 days. So it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on the 4th day they do a medicine called yahe, which is ayahuasca, but it's a different brew, and it's more purgative. It's not quite as visionary.
Yeah.
So you can have visions, but like literally you're just like puking and shitting all night.
Yeah. Wow. Wait. Why do you? Sorry, I want you to continue with that story. But why do you generally do it consecutively, like 3 or 4 days at a time?
Well, so if you're doing it like for the intention of like deep healing, right? That's a lot of spaces. So I know that like Michael, Phillip, and Colin were just at Blue Morpho, and they have a similar program where you do like X amount of days in a row, then you have a day off, and then you finish it strong. But that's really, I think, to make the most of the medicine journey, is to really clear out all the junk that you need to clear out so that you can be a clear vessel and understand what you need to work on. So Rhythmia has a similar protocol where it's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the ceremony, then Thursday, yahe, and then Friday they'll do breath work, Saturday's breath work, and then you usually go home on Sunday. And it's just like the kind of cleansing protocol, I guess. But even the first time I did ayahuasca, it was summer of 2013. The place I went to, we did 4 ceremonies, but they were just spaced out a little more. But it seems to be like 3 to 4 is I don't know what the exact rhyme or reason for it, other than like deep cleansing. But
Yeah.
So.
I'd like to probably have to ask you more about that, because I'm interested. I'm interested now. Yeah, I'm interested. I've been a little scared because it's such a visceral thing.
It's amazing though, especially with your level where you're at with your consciousness and being a creative. I feel like it would be a very valuable, precious experience for you to have. Yeah. And Sean, Cass, and I, we have a shaman we work with in upstate New York who's amazing. So. Yeah.
I might have to do that.
Yeah.
That sounds really interesting. Yeah.
I recommend
Yeah.
it because it's like I had a really psychedelic summer. I just
Yeah.
had a crazy year and wanted to take the summer to really like journey and clear out my shit.
Yeah.
But
Psychedelic summer.
psychedelic summer. Yeah.
I love that.
Yes,
I
it
want to have
was.
psychedelic summers
Yeah.
every summer.
Oh my God. I don't know if I can handle it.
Yeah. No, but
But I mean, it was like bufo, combo, psilocybin, ayahuasca. Like I
Oh,
did
yeah.
ayahuasca 6 times this summer.
wow.
Maybe 7.
Wild.
But towards the end of it, so like I had my experience in August at Rhythmia, and then I did a ceremony with Sean and Cass because I love them so much, and their shaman's awesome, and there's only like 8 people in these ceremonies, so it was really great. But I was like, this will be my last one, and then I'm taking a break for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was like out of all the times I've done it, the most intense, insane thing in the world. So it was almost like ayahuasca being like, oh yeah, you want one last reminder that you have to be a human for a while? I'm gonna kick your ass all night.
Wow.
So it was like everything. I was like looking at my hands, and it was like I felt like a computer, and I'm like, okay, this is never gonna end, and this is my life now, and nobody can help me.
I love it.
Literally, at
That's
one
so
point,
good.
I was like, should I call the shaman for help? Nobody can help me. I
Yeah.
have to just surf this wave.
Yeah. That is
But-
wild.
And
Okay.
that's the crazy thing about ayahuasca. It doesn't matter sometimes how much you take.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I had a quarter of a cup of the same medicine that I had with the same shaman in July. And it was all night turning into a fractal. No matter if my eyes were open or shut. It was just no distinguishing from the visions. And it was funny at the end because when she called around the room, like, how's everybody doing? And she asked me, and I was like, I am here now, I think. Like, I have no words for how I'm doing, but this is the thing. But yeah, after that, I felt like I would like to take a nice pause to be in this reality and navigate it. And for me, my struggle sometimes is like, it's so easy for me to be up in the clouds, to be surfing through the stars, and to be thinking in this like astral etheric realm. Where I struggle sometimes is being a human and feeling comfortable with who I am, and being okay with like walking through the world as Jen. And Colin Francescetto. Do you know Colin?
No, I don't.
Oh, he's beautiful. He's on Michael Phillips' podcast a lot.
Oh, okay.
Just a beautiful, beautiful being. And he had said something to me this summer about how like he's just amazed at what a psychonaut I am and how I can traverse these realms okay. But he's like, it does seem like you sometimes struggle with being human. So that's my thing, is like working on being a better human right now.
But why? How and why did he dissect you like that?
Because
Or your human experience like that?
So I was sharing some of my neuroses with him.
Oh, I see.
And just, I'm an only child and an Aries, and
I'm an only child too.
oh wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I'm an only child aside from I have a half brother and a half sister, but I didn't grow up with them.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But you probably relate to a need for alone time, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm definitely that way. Yeah, I'm definitely that way. Yeah.
So I've always been that way.
Yeah.
Even in relationships, when I like lived with former partners, I'd be like, I have to leave, and I just have to go stay somewhere for a few days to just like write and create and be alone. And a lot of people never got that, and they'd be like, oh, and I'm like, but it's nothing personal. It's just I need to be alone.
Yeah.
But sometimes that needing to be alone can turn into self-imposed isolation. So because I work from home, because I work for myself, because I can
see.
just do what I want to do, like all of a sudden 2 weeks will go by and I'm like, oh wow, I actually haven't seen anybody. I've just been like waking up, working, going to the gym, hanging out with my animals, creating, writing, talking to people every day, but having human contact, you know? So I was sharing with him how sometimes I struggle with that, and I worry that like one day I'll just be like a hermit. And I I'm single, but I'm like, I just was sharing with him how like I want to be more in the world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you, and I'm kind of asking for myself, do you
Yeah.
struggle with loneliness?
No, which is weird because
Interesting, because everything you said, it was kind of suggesting
yeah
that a bit.
yeah it's weird because I don't know if that would be the word for it.
Yeah.
because I like being alone. I like having that time. I love being with friends. I love connecting and being with people. But say, like, you know, for example, like I've been in LA this whole week and like a lot of stimulation, lots of people. But then usually after that, I'll need like a few days to just recalibrate and just be alone.
I
but
see.
in those moments, it doesn't feel like loneliness. It feels like anxiety is not the word. I think it's like God, I wish I could think of what the word is. Like maybe it's anxiety. Like I kind of like I worry that like I could be so comfortable in being alone that I'm limiting myself from bringing people in that really just want to spend time.
I see.
You know, that's like a very candid, raw moment, but that's like,
yeah.
Yeah.
No. I mean, it's great. Yeah. It's interesting. I've thought that about myself, about, you know, the need for self-imposed isolation or the need for my me time.
Yeah.
But it's like toggling that balance between when it's too much alone time. And I mean, luckily, like, you know, we have the space so that, and, you know, we have a couple of employees here so that I'm able to have conversations with people, but then I can go back to my place and, you know, do the things I need to do. So it's kind of a good balance. But yeah, I think about that sometimes in terms of like relationships and things, you know, like romantic relationships. Just if, I don't know, I guess it's more so about what it means to actually have a partner.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what it means. I don't know if I've quite found that.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be completely frank. Yeah,
it's good to
or
be honest.
or maybe I found that at certain points, but lack that currently. You know.
Yeah, it's a hard thing, and I think it kind of circles back to the conversation on like being honest with what you need.
Yeah.
And what your boundaries are, or what your weird quirks and preferences are, and feeling safe to be in a partnership with somebody that needs that, or can meet that need.
Yeah, can meet that, yeah.
And can be okay with it and not leave you feeling judged. Like in the past, like in other relationships I'd been in, like I was with one particular partner that hated being alone and always wanted me to come to things and always needed me there, and didn't understand how I'd be like, it's okay for you to go. Have fun. Like, be with your friends. I don't need this. So that's also, like, I'm like, I need somebody to be able to meet me with my weirdness and be okay with that.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
But, it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard because each person comes with their own experiences, and when you're with, like, a close, intimate, it could be, you know, business partnership or, like, a romantic relationship, but when something is so intimate, I guess it's what am I trying to say here? It's potentially difficult to navigate that. At least that's from my experience.
Yeah.
But
no,
I don't know.
I can surely relate to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like it's kind of it's funny, the echoes of conversation, because this is actually like similar to a conversation I was having earlier today too, about how it feels like because we're in this like age of apps and technology and everything at our fingertips and constantly being overstimulated and whatever, like I feel like even just like dating in general has become harder. So like, and like when you meet somebody, it's just, it's hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the experience for you from a male perspective, but from a female perspective, it's very hard. And like, I'd rather be alone than be lonely with somebody that I'm not like that into, or to, you know, just kind of.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, yeah. Yeah. No, I feel the same way. Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily, I mean, I don't know if like, I guess I can only speak to my perspective, but, when I was utilizing dating apps, I don't know what I think about. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a distraction. I think it's a distraction. And I don't know if, I'm trying to articulate this. I think it's a distraction. I don't judge people for using them because I've used them in the past. But there's something, maybe it's nostalgia for me, about connecting and longing for someone that you meet in person, you know? But and that sort of like gestation period that accumulates in your mind of I guess longing, yeah. Because with the apps, it's so instantaneous. You know, it's like, okay, well, that didn't work. This person's not messaging me back, so then I'm going to go on to the next one, or, you know, and then it seems so expendable. So then with that idea of expendability, like, you don't appreciate it as much because then there's other options. And also living in like a big city like Los Angeles, there's constantly more options. And it's just not the way that I like to have relationships in general. You know, or just like relationships with friends, and, you know, I don't want to think about people being expendable, you know. So I don't know. It's almost like the antithesis of a genuine human experience. Yeah.
I'm so happy you said that, because that's how it's felt.
Yeah.
Like every relationship I've had,
Right?
every time I've fallen in love, it's been like a chance meeting, or I met through a friend, or like here we are. It's always been this like Slumdog Millionaire, right place, right time kind of thing, you know? But like apps, every time I download them, I delete them immediately because they are a distraction, and then it just like leaves you feeling gross when you're just like, ew, I don't like this photo, or like I'm judging somebody literally because I don't like their photo.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this person could be an amazing human being, but because they didn't write the right blurb, or because they shared a photo that I don't resonate with, like it feels terrible. And like amazing to me, to people that I've met on apps and have fallen in love. But I feel like more than often than not, the stories I hear is that it's like people ghost, people, you know, are disappointed. There's this account, this artist, God, what's her name? Violet Claire. She's an illustrator, and she has this whole Instagram story highlight reel called like screenshot stories. And it's like people who have gone out on dates through apps, and then they just turn into a nightmare because there's so much projection and expectation. And, you know, you're meeting somebody based off of such a superficial thing. And then you thinking that you're forging a real connection. And then when it doesn't go right, it seems to be like this bomb goes off. I'm like, I don't ever want to do this. I will just be alone.
Yeah. And then, and I feel like when you do go, I mean, when I've been on certain dates, that I'm immediately judging the situation. I'm like, okay, well, is this person right fit or not? Because if not, it's a waste of time or whatever. And this is not how I have regular conversations with people.
No.
I'm not worried about if someone is like wasting my time, or, you know, I just try to be as present as possible. And then it just feels like, okay, well, get to the fucking point. Like, is this, you know, like, is this good or is this not, like, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's weird. It's very weird, this time we live in.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And there's just like this one app too, which is like, it's funny because I'm on it and I haven't deleted it because it's like my friend gave me a guest pass for it. It was
Is
like
it Raya?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I literally only will like look on it because I think it's funny. But I'm like, God, this is actually very gross because everybody's on here because you're like an influencer or famous. And I'm like, well, maybe it does fill a need because people that are in a creative space or maybe like more in the public light understand that comes with its own unique set of challenges.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, oh, people are also on this because it's like they're famous people here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's also like doesn't feel good. But yeah.
Yeah. So then it's a transactional thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, speaking to dating apps, I have had one very, I mean, it's ups and downs, but a relatively solid relationship and a good human experience from that. So I can't really, you know, so I don't know. We live in such complicated times, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to say. Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, it's weird times for sure. Like,
it's hard to articulate.
Yeah, I have this thing that I've literally been tagged in like 3 times where because 2012 was like a very significant part of my journey, but there's this conspiracy theory that we all actually died in 2012 and we're just in this weird mutant timeline. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, there we go. We got like, you know, President Camacho, like.
Yeah. Well, once the Mayan calendar died, I mean, we're all fucked. So.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess this is part of that.
Yeah. No, yeah. I don't. Yeah. 20. Yeah. It's interesting, like how 2012 and like 2000 people thought that the world was going to come to an end. But yeah, I mean, who knows? That could be it's kind of a funny theory.
Yeah.
But
it's a good way to just like place blame on things being bizarre right now.
Yeah. That's why that's the way it is.
Yeah. Like the Mandela effect stuff. Like to me, that blows my mind because I'm like, well, if we did shift timelines and like some weird stuff is happening with CERN or whatever, like why is it just that the Berenstain Bears are now the Berenstein Bears or whatever that was? Like that's really what we got from this weird thing.
Yeah. My favorite childhood book is now suddenly changed the title of it in some way. Yeah.
But some of them are really weird. But again, I think it goes back to like us not noticing things or like wanting them to be what they seem like they should be, like the Shazam and Kazam thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it should. You assume because it's Shaq, it should be Shazam, but it's Kazam, so it's like cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's also weird. Do you know like anything about like MK Ultra stuff?
I do.
Okay.
I totally do. Yeah.
Did you ever see the Shaq glitch?
I did see the Shaq glitch.
I'm like, why is nobody talking about this?
Yeah. He's just like staring at the camera.
And everybody's ignoring him. I'm like, what the fuck?
But I wonder if because I'm assuming that a majority of people didn't see the live feed of that.
Yeah.
And are just watching it off YouTube, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm curious if, you know what I mean, because deep fakes are a thing and, you know, basically superimposing people's faces on other people and things of that nature. But if someone just through CGI like constructed that, like who knows?
Yeah, but that's also so weird. But then you said the Al Roker one.
I didn't.
Oh my God. Well, that was live. And something,
what happened?
There was some recording, like live news, whatever, and all of a sudden they said a word and Al Roker's face just froze and he was just like, for those that can't see what's happening right now, I'm making Al Roker face.
Yeah.
It was like for like an uncomfortably long period of time. Like he broke.
Staring.
Yeah. Just staring like frozen, like this weird face. And I'm like, what has happened? What did you break? Like you just glitching. The MK Ultra stuff is like my deep rabbit hole that I always return to. It's like
I go on so many. I mean, I guess all of us, or majority of us, probably gone those YouTube rabbit holes. But yeah, for a while, for me, it was the dark web stuff.
What have you found on there with that?
Oh, not going into the dark web, but like going on YouTube and like just listening to these stories. Of people. Yeah,
it's really weird. Yeah,
I don't know.
I still don't really understand the QAnon stuff. I don't know if
what is that?
I think it's like connected to like dark web and like 4chan and something.
I see. Yeah.
There are certain ones that like I can't wrap my head around completely. Like you know, like the stuff with like Pepe, like the meme, how they said that was actually like chaos magic. Have you heard this one?
No, I haven't. But
so there's an Egyptian deity called Kek, and it's a frog god, and he's the deity of like chaos. So there's this idea that like when Trump and Hillary were running and all that stuff happened with like Pepe memes, whatever, there are all these kids on 4chan that were believed to be like practicing chaos magic and like using Pepe as like this like Kek magic. It's a really good rabbit hole to go down.
Interesting.
But it gets weirder because, you know, Pepe just came from this cartoonist, Matt Fury, and it was just like this like funny little cartoon about a stone frog. And then it became the meme that it was, and it became the meme it evolved into, which was like super bizarre. But now there are all these riots happening in, I believe it's Hong Kong, where a little girl was shot in the eye during a riot because they were protesting about being surveilled. So Pepe now, this meme, has become the icon of this movement of not being surveilled. And it's just weird because like you think of like biblical prophecy of like, you know, frogs and whatever. I'm like, why is the frogs and the toads and the Keg and Pepe?
Interesting. Yeah.
These are the things I think about late at night.
Yeah. I'll have to look that one up. That's wild.
Yeah. I'll send you a link to
okay.
There's this really amazing artist I just interviewed for the podcast too. He has a account. It's 5D Awakening Consciousness, but he created something called the Great Awakening Map, where he literally mapped every conspiracy theory, everything in like a really, he
Holy
has
shit.
showed at like
Wow.
LACMA and Mocha. He's like an amazing
What's
artist.
his name?
His name's Champ Parnaya. He lives in Thailand right now, but it's 5D Awakening Consciousness is his Instagram, and it's the Great Awakening map, and it's so well done. But he explained to me this whole like Pepe thing and showed me this one account where it's like so trippy.
That's so
Yeah.
crazy.
He's really cool. He'd be somebody
Yeah.
cool to talk to.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Yeah.
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 But this has been such a great chat. Like,
Yeah.
We've gone down so many fractal conversation.
Yeah. No, it's good. Yeah. No, it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it's been cool to like check out the space too. And yeah. And yeah, so for anybody listening to, how can people follow up with your work and connect with everything you have going on?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I guess Instagram at Yoshino Studios, and then the podcast is at Artists Decoded, and at No Wave, NOH Wave. You can find us there.
Awesome.
And
Thanks,
me there. Yeah.
Thanks, Yoshino.
All right. Thank you.